Welcome to WYCD, Wicked that stands for What You Can Do. It's your old pal Jake, and we're starting the show off today with something that just tickles me. I used to have two things that really gave me energy. The first thing, waking up in the morning, mornings being generous, but waking up for the first time in a day, and and seeing that a video had gotten a bunch of likes and comments and therefore views. I'll tell you, if it was unexpected, that's like floating on air, as opposed to water. Oh, I guess it works. Yeah, it's like floating on air. It's amazing. The other thing would be a really insightful comment. Love it. Just gives me so much energy. I think about it all morning. Wonder if I'm going to work it into the show. Inevitably come up with a grand plan and then fail to follow through with it. But still, it really does give me energy. Well, now there's a third thing. The third thing is when a member of the Wicked audience goes out there and does something. We've actually had members of the audience say, well, yeah, I did what you said. I did what the plan was. I sent the email. I contacted the person. It almost doesn't feel real to me. I love that so much. And then to have somebody take it a step further and write a full article over on Medium. So it's a blogging spot. Well, Wicked Foxy Dragon wrote a grand slam of an article because it touches on the very thing that we're all about here, what you can do. And she wrote it on gun control. If you were here on Salty Saturday, you saw a little bit of the article. I'll tell you where we stopped, and that was the very moment I decided to use that article again today. Two reasons. Number one, it deserves. She did fine enough work that it deserves to be shown twice. And number two, Wicked Foxy Dragon, you did my work for me. I'm not going to pass up a free segment where someone's already come up with what you can do. I'm not going to do work that I don't have to. It's done already. So, our first segment today is brought to you by none other than Wicked Foxy Dragon. We're going to look at her article, and to give us context, we are first going to listen to what Mr. Ali Velshi over on MSNBC has to say. Here he is. We were so close. There we go.
You ever been to Japan? Visiting Japan for the first time would probably be a culture shock for most Americans. The food, the language, the currency, and young children walking to school, running errands, and taking the subway on their own. It is common in Tokyo to see small children as young as 5 or 6 years old traipsing along the streets with their mini backpacks and their oversized hats, either alone or in a group of other young children. They are trained by their parents at a young age to safely cross roads, to learn the transportation systems, and to identify places to go if they're ever in trouble. This is the norm in Japan because it's consistently ranked one of the safest countries in the world and because Japan places widespread trust in its own society. A 2016 article in The Wire says, quote, schools also distribute a special yellow patch to first graders that they wear on their uniforms, which identifies them as newbies to the art of navigating in the city. Adults keep a special eye out for these patch wearers. Retirees sometimes volunteer to usher children across roads safely while they go to school. Households can also volunteer to display signs outside their homes indicating their willingness to provide refuge to any child in distress. In Japan, there's a collective agreement to keep children safe at all costs.
Just wanted to chime in to say, when I imagine someone sneaking across the border to get into the United States, I imagine that they are picturing a country like that. that they're going to all that trouble to sneak into. Country where you don't have to worry about your kids' safety. Not this one. But I'm glad to hear that such countries do exist.
Not so in America. Last week in the United States, 3 children and 3 school employees were killed in the country's 38th mass shooting in the month of March. That's according to the Gun Violence Archive. 6 people are dead after a shooter entered the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee, with a military-style AR-15 rifle and began shooting indiscriminately. On the day of the shooting, the First Lady, Jill Biden, a lifelong educator, had this to say.
I am truly without words, and our children deserve better.
Our children deserve better. A few days earlier, before the shooting in Nashville, Republican Congressman John Joyce of Pennsylvania had a similar hope for America's children.
Our students deserve better.
Their statements are the same, but the meaning behind their words couldn't be more different, because Congressman Joyce was talking about protecting the nation's children not from guns, but from plant-based milk. He added, quote, "We cannot allow almonds or soy to be passed off as dairy." The outrage. Here's a little more of his speech.
Bones, muscle, brain, and vital organs all rely on products like whole milk for healthy development.
When the bullets from an AR-15 rip through a child, their bones, muscle, brain, and vital organs are eviscerated. There's virtually no chance for survival, let alone healthy development.
Thank you. I would love for you guys to share this segment. Not this one I'm doing on this channel. Oh, hell, I'd love that. But Ali Velshi's segment. Or Wicked Foxy Dragon's article. Both are extremely well put. And I would love, and by the way, they both address the same cause of the problem. The cause of the problem is Republicans. They have made the determination that there are things in this country which are more important than the lives of school children. I am talking on just a tribal level. I'm talking about even more basic than that. When we were apes that were just getting used to toddling on the ground, when we were inventing the atlatl to help us throw spears 5,000 years ago, when we were doing that, even then, we knew that a decent society prioritizes the safety of its children. In fact, you don't even need a society. You want to get in danger with a mother bear, what do? Threaten its kid. You want to get attacked by an alley cat, what do? Threaten its kittens. Every group on Earth, including the non-human ones, seem to be more humane than Republicans. And I would love for you to ask the Republicans in your life how it is, the Republican voters in your life, how it is they possibly put anything, any single thing they think they are gaining above the lives of school children. Because there's no damn reason to.
Beware those who will.
I just saw you, Foxy. It is quiet. It's a Monday. It'll tend to happen. But I'm thinking the VOD is going to do very well. Let's hope. Because I really do want anything, for God's sake, anything to change in this country on this issue.
try to convince you that the safety of children is their number one priority. They are banning books, they're banning lessons on race, they're banning health care for trans children, they're blaming video games, they're blaming drag shows, they're banning sex education, and they're banning almond milk. Almond beverage. They're banning Michelangelo's anatomically correct statue of David, all in the name of protecting the kids. But none of these things, including seeing the statue of David's stone penis, actually puts a child's life at risk of danger. You know what does? The military-style lethal weapons that are legally purchased by people who wish to inflict harm on other people. Look at this video. Look at these children fleeing their elementary school, running for their lives. These children are not fleeing books or statues or stories of black history. They are trying to outrun bullets from an AR-15 rifle, an impossible task for 6 people who never made it out of that school alive. I hope to one day look back at assault weapons the same way we look at drunk driving or smoking on airplanes. Today, it seems implausible that those things were once societally acceptable, but there was a time when you could drink a pack of beer and get behind the wheel of a car or light up a cigarette in a restaurant or in an airplane. Many Americans were strongly opposed to criminalizing drunk driving or banning cigarettes on airplanes, but now it is the norm. My hope is that one day we look back and say, wow, remember those times when anyone could just buy an AR-15? That was crazy. But in order for that to happen, our lawmakers need to act, and the Republican Party needs to drop the selective outrage and come to the collective agreement to keep children safe at all costs.
No notes for Mr. Velshi. None. So look, we need to be forcing our representatives to talk about this at a rate which reflects how much we care about it. We need to be insisting that at every opportunity they can, they put forward bills to deal with this. There's a number of ways they can do that, including trying to force amendments into existing bills that deal with this stuff. Through the work, and don't be too flattered, Foxy, because now I got to show the ugly side. Through the work that's already been done by Wicked Foxy Dragon, we're going to look at some of the reasonable reforms that can be suggested to these representatives. Your goal at home will be to write your representative. And what the hell? Copy and paste Foxy's suggestions if you want. Or if you have one that's that you think is there, it's got a great chance. Just use that one. If you have your own that you think would work, great. Suggest that, but make sure that your representative, whoever it is, your representative, is talking about it at every available opportunity, and tell them you want that. And if scumbags in Congress are going to vote against it, make them. Don't fail to put it forward just because they will say no. Make them say no on the record. Oi. Here's the article we were talking about. I want to read one paragraph and highlight something. As with Jill Biden, Foxy says something must be done. Our children deserve better. Yes, they do. People need to wake up and see the whole picture and not just tunnel vision. There is something that can be done. In fact, there is a lot of something that can be done. It just takes a little uncommon sense. Here's what she listed before. Highlighting all of it. Background checks. That one's a layup. Mandatory background checks. We could make that a federal rule for the purchase of firearms. a background check, stopping gun sellers from selling guns designed for war to average citizens. In other words, that would mean banning military-style assault weapons. It's bizarre to me that this is even a matter of debate, but let's plug on. A concerned family member might report their concerns and stop one unstable person from buying a gun and killing a classroom of kids. Yes, make reporting easier. Training gun owners instead of letting anyone over 18 purchase a gun. Yeah. This is less talked about, but it's a common occurrence. Foolishness with firearms kills people every year. There are a ton of people in this country that treat guns like toys. It should be no different. At the very least, it should be no different than having a car. If you need to be licensed to drive a car, you should need to be licensed to own a gun. You should have to demonstrate to a professional that you can be responsible with this incredibly destructive machine. We wouldn't let anybody have a large hadron collider. I don't know. That's the only big destructive machine I could think of. But we would a semi-truck. We wouldn't let anybody just have a semi-truck without a license, without some training. It's no different with a gun, for God's sake. And of course, if gun owners can be held responsible for any crime committed with a gun they own, even if they had nothing to do with the crime or even know about it, I'm guessing gun owners would be a little more careful with how many people have access to their guns. Guess what? So many crimes are committed with borrowed guns. Not stolen, but borrowed guns. I cannot fathom how this is not already a law. It's true, it's not already a law. But I can't fathom how this happened. If you are so casual with loaning out a device which fires bullets that you give it to somebody who then turns around and uses it for a crime, I just can't see how you're not also culpable, responsible in some way. I hope that's the right term. Legally responsible. You gotta be. That's gotta be what? Reckless endangerment? In other words, at a minimum, I would want to see A, everybody need to be licensed to carry a gun, and then B, making it illegal to loan your gun to somebody who is not licensed. Or frankly, I don't know. I wonder if even loaning a gun at all should be allowed. Certainly, if you stored it in such a way that your kid could get a hold of it, was physically capable of getting hold of it, that to me seems like an obvious problem. There's one thing I saw in this article. I'm going to go a little earlier. Here's what Foxy says. Now, before you assume I have no idea what I'm talking about, let me just say I am a gun owner. Wow, I almost said that correctly. I am a gun owner and have a CCW permit. I am not against guns at all, and I believe civilians should have the option to own a gun to protect themselves. I carry a gun with me almost everywhere I go, especially if I have my son with me. All right, so look. The writer of this article is the very person that Democrats, sane Republicans, really just reasonable people are talking about when they say reasonable gun owners. In fact, I would argue most gun owners are like this. It is more of a sign than anything else of how unrepresentative our democracy is. That our children are killed and we do nothing about it because most people give a damn, as they should. Be annoying to your representative about this. Republicans constantly talk about our right to own guns, but they always forget the part that says well-regulated, a well-regulated militia. There is nothing in the Constitution that says a civilian has the right to own an AR Mother 15. Now consider this. While it is legal for a person to buy a M79, good Lord, grenade launcher, it would require the buyer to pass an in-depth background check by the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, wait 6 months to a year to get an M79, and pay a stiff fee. It would also require another application to the ATF and another long wait to buy live rounds, which would not include grenades, which, for all intents and purposes, are illegal. First of all, Foxy, great job citing this stuff, because that is what I was going to look at. I I couldn't believe the M79 thing. Oh, good Lord. Couldn't believe the M79 thing. But yeah, and that followed a whole rabbit hole of interesting loopholes in gun laws. But anyway, funniest line, so excuse my language, but you Republicans who say we cannot restrict or regulate guns, it's simply untrue, not to mention unreasonable. I wholeheartedly agree. Folks, check out Foxy's article. It really is, I mean, it's right to the point. It's a whopping 6-minute read. And if you want to know every reasonable objection you could have to this, I feel that every reasonable reform you could make that you could not have a reasonable objection to, I feel that is located in this highlighted section. 1 through 6. Bo, the fifth column, did a whole video on ways you can secure a school. I think that's interesting. I'm up for that. I recently saw a Tennessee, what was it? I think the governor of Tennessee. Recently saw them getting trashed for suggesting securing schools. I'll tell you, I don't get it. Anything. We should be doing anything. Yeah, secure schools. Yeah, put an army of security guards in schools. That's not sufficient, but it's better than what we have now, which is just every single day we roll the dice and hope we don't hear about another massacre of children. We really can't just go about our days. There is truly nothing more important to handle. So handle it. Write your representative. Tell him Wicked Foxy Dragon sent. All right. We're not doing Kirshner. Who we doing here? Ah, yes. So, let's lighten the mood a little bit so we have the energy to do these things. Rustbox says, good evening, Jake. Good evening, Rustbox. Good to see you. By the way, folks, if you're enjoying the stream, despite the severe depression you might have just gotten, give it a like. I'd highly appreciate it. Well, Ron DeSantis chose to pick a fight with Disney. A quick recap of the fight is he wanted to revoke a deal that Disney had made very, very long time ago, wherein Disney basically got to operate under its own rules, and the deal was extraordinarily favorable to the Florida government. But it prevented Ron DeSantis from doing things like bully Disney about, just being decent to trans people, forcing Disney to be abusive to trans people. Well, it would appear that Disney did something, I'm going to have to look at the technical term. I believe it's fuckery. They engaged in some fuckery. And it doesn't look like that deal's going to go through now. Or that revoking of the deal. Yeah. The point being, it looks like they got one over on Ron DeSantis. Let's check out NBC talking about it, NBC News. And they also bring up a good point, which is maybe not where you'd think this is going. But it's attend your local city council meetings. Here it is.
Welcome back. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis learned an important lesson this week. Don't mess with the mouse. The Walt Disney Corporation has come out on top, at least for now, in the ongoing power struggle between the company and DeSantis to control the previously independent area that houses Disney's parks in the state of Florida. A new document, first reported by the Orlando Sentinel, reveals that just weeks before the board DeSantis established to take control of the area came into power, Disney moved to limit that new board's control, unbeknownst to the governor and the board itself. And they did it, at the time, under perfectly legal ways to do it. The company also invoked a rare legal clause that makes the move valid in perpetuity or until 21 years after the death of the last living descendants of King Charles. For real. Yes, the king over there. The board said that they will challenge the document. The fight between Disney and DeSantis started over Disney's political activities, namely their support of the LGBTQ community.
Hold on. Correction, Chuck Todd. That's not political activity. That's just decency. It started because that prick chose to use the government to attack Americans. The fact that we haven't collectively gone to his the governor's mansion, wherever the hell that is, kicked down the doors, dragged him to the nearest jail, and thrown him in there is a shame on us. And when I say we, I mean it's a shame on us for not having a law that says what he's done is illegal. We need to make one. But just to be clear, that wasn't Disney taking a political stance. That was Disney just treating people decently.
As DeSantis continues his push to curtail LGBTQ visibility. Our senior national politics reporter, who is based in Florida, Matt Dixon, joins me now. And Matt, like I said, it feels like a plot twist in Succession. You're like, Logan Roy did what?
Chuck Todd is just the most annoying little dweeb. I want to like him, too. I don't know why I want to like him, but I do. Maybe he's got a face that looks hopeful. Yeah. But then he opens his mouth and does a Succession reference. I don't know, man. It keeps rubbing me the wrong way.
And I guess this is what happened here.
Is it a King Charles III themed Disney ride that we were talking about? There's a lot going on.
So walk me through. This happened, I think, 24 hours before the new board was put into place?
Yeah, it happened February 8th, and one of the strangest twists is it wasn't some secret meeting or some sort of private thing behind closed doors. It was done during a publicly noticed meeting that anyone could watch or attend. The Orlando Sentinel did a great job of getting some of those meeting documents. So this was a thing that kind of the governor's office just missed.
Okay. Right now, if you go on to your town's website, you will be able to pull up a list of minutes from the latest city council meetings or town council meetings or whatever. And it tells you all the business they're up to. It also, on that website, will tell you when they're meeting next and what they'll be talking about in that meeting. Use that. All of this is interesting. I've got commentary on all of this. But the what you can do is serviced best right here. He just said something that is so revealing about how America works. And I'll tell you, I have been on the wall, so to speak, the watcher on the wall, whose job it was to find local news. And the way we did it most reliably was having a look at what city councils were up to and what press releases the police put out. And there would be times that I would know a city council meeting was happening. And I'd be like, but it's in this small town. And I know I said I was going to go look at it, but I'm tired and I'm not. And that would happen to be when no other news organization covered it either, because there's only so many in the town. And when you're in mid-Michigan, it ain't exactly New York City. So there's not an infinite number of reporters. And then, it would just go unnoticed. Case in point, one we nearly missed was a sudden surprise meeting that was being held when it was discovered that a school board president had been siphoning gas from the motor pool for years to take his family on road trips. He'd fill up his tank with the school's gas money beforehand. He finally got caught, and the police got called on him, and he had to sheepishly explain that he was a member of the school board to try to get out of it. And that didn't work. And thus, big scandal. But that story was nearly missed because just nobody goes to these things. Unless, of course, they're crazy Republican, crazy far-right people. So, go to your meetings. You will be shocked by how much influence a couple of voices have. We've talked about how much more influence you have at the state level. You are a political force in and of yourself at the town level. The town level where a couple of hundred votes decide, not even decide, a couple of dozen votes decide races. Sometimes 5 or 6 votes decide races. You think these people aren't going to do what you say if you say it calmly, persistently, and with passion? Yeah, they're going to do what you say. Go to your town meetings. Look at the schedule. If there is something that you have an opinion on, take 1-2 hours of your time to go to that meeting. If you want to come in late, come in late. You can see when they're going to talk about it. Treat it like going to a particularly boring movie. But it is important. Go there, speak to them. You literally just stand at a podium and you talk to 5 or 6 people. The city manager, the mayor, the city council. Talk to them.
That was one.
My point being, this was effing Disney. I'm going to cool it with the cursing. There's too much cursing. If you have to curse to make a point, pick a better word. This was the Disney Corporation butting heads with Ron DeSantis, a very popular, or at least a very well-known politician right now. And nobody noticed. Even Ron DeSantis didn't notice. Even his whole team didn't notice. And they did this out in the open. I'm just telling you, that is how appreciated these local meetings are. Which also means it's a lever of power that's not being touched, which we could grab hold of, and we must.
24 hours, one day before the House signed off on the DeSantis appointed board, sort of taking over what was the old Disney or Reedy Creek board. And it happened in plain sight. But here we are talking about King Charles III and sort of gubernatorial and Disney intrigue.
What do they think they can do from the government side of things here?
That isn't totally clear at the moment. We've certainly been asking, and we don't have a clear legal strategy as far as how the governor's office is going to kind of pursue this moving forward. Without question, they're going to. Governor DeSantis' sort of motto is never back down, never apologize, double down, and that we fully anticipate, and I think Disney does as well. But at this point, as far as the blueprint or how they're sort of signaling that they're going to push back on this, we're not quite sure, but it is definitely something to watch. I'm certain the DeSantis administration isn't just going to sort of let this slide.
Bottom line is they have just basically defanged this entire new board, correct? They are at this point a condo board?
Yeah, that's a very Florida way to put it.
Yeah.
But by the new board's own admission, some of the quotes from the Orlando Sentinel yesterday had board members essentially saying, "Well, Disney is the new board. We are, they didn't quite say that we are toothless, but functionally, what they said during that meeting that we're talking about is we are now toothless because of this February 8th agreement that the old board signed before the legislature and DeSantis could sort of make these changes."
Matt, you know this administration pretty well. Is this hubris, naivete? What do you chalk it up to? How did they miss this?
I mean, it seems six one way, half a dozen another, in the sense that they're usually pretty good at this stuff, but we don't get any sense that they saw this coming, and it caught a lot of people off guard. And again, I'm gonna circle back to the point I made initially. This happened in a public meeting. This wasn't some secret thing in the C-suite at Disney that was done with no spotlight.
So, two things. First, I'm going to put forth a suggestion that it will totally contradict the second thing. But it's possible, so I just want to throw it out there. It is possible that DeSantis did see this. It did see this and simply chose not to react. Why? Because it was a terrible stunt that he pulled. It was done to impress folks. That's all. Gross people. But I mean, it was a terrible deal for Florida, and they were taking on a massive burden. Disney was paying for services that Florida would be required to provide instead over what he did. So having it essentially nullified might have been in his best interest, and he might have hoped that this just quietly happened and he got to get his political points and move on. That said, having been on the other side of this, even in my small way, I 100% can see how DeSantis's entire staff would have missed this. Because I tell you, these local meetings are they're so overlooked. Even though that's how the majority of rules that actually will affect your life are made, it's just stuff people don't think about. And by the way, when I said we must grab that lever of power, now that's not accurate, but we could. We could, and I think we must grab all the levers we can. Oh God, I hate Ron DeSantis so much. It's just everything about this guy is despicable, but let's keep it going.
All anyone really had to do, and the Orlando Sentinel decided to do it, was follow the agenda.
Now, you know what? Let's not keep it going. There's literally only so much DeSantis I can stand to look at. He's not even fun to make fun of. There's nothing about this guy that is even a little bit redeemable. So what can you do? You can attend your local city council meetings. It's very important. And as you just saw, even Ron DeSantis and his whole team, which picked a fight with Disney, miss these kinds of things. In your town, there are probably scandals galore that you were unaware of. There were probably rules made, backroom deals, etc., that you could be privy to, that you could be aware of, that you could fight against or control as you see fit if you attend the meetings. The rooms usually have a handful of people in them. Sometimes they're full, but they're full like a church gets full. You know, there's always a seat. Just remember, everything is local somewhere. In your town, interesting things probably happen. In your town, events you would probably want to affect, if you knew about them, happen from time to time. Make it a habit to go on your town's website, get familiar with when the city council meetings are, and once in a while, look at what they're going to talk about. By the way, you find yourself somewhat curious to get into politics. You think maybe you want to, but you wouldn't know where to begin. That's where you begin. Not even being in the city council. Not even being a clerk. Just attend the meetings. You literally see how it's done. Give it some thought. Patrick Thibodeau, good to see you. And Franny P, good to see you as well. Patrick says, I'm just going to say it. Can we nail down an official start time? I keep catching the show 30 minutes in or later or missing it altogether. I nominate 9 Eastern. Well, we were doing 8 Eastern for a while, and we moved that up from 6 Eastern. But apparently there is another show on at 6 that a lot of folks watch, and I don't want to distract. The problem with going later is that it takes a while to literally process the videos in YouTube when I upload them. And that means, I'm saying this out loud and realizing, well, that means that the news we're talking about is always one day stale by the time it goes up. But as I say that, this is not really a show about catching breaking news. It's about how you can take that information and then do something with it. So it might even be a benefit for us to give people more time to get familiar. But then also there's just sleeping. I'll think about it. As of now, the start time is 8 p.m. Eastern. If it changes, I will put out something on the community tab. John McDonough says, just tuned in. Hello, all. Patrick Thibodeau says, somehow it feels like punching down. He is such an insecure dweeb. Unfortunately, he can make people's lives miserable and seems to get off on that. Yeah, it does feel like punching down. I don't know why, though, because he's literally rich and powerful. Both of those things are true. Here's what bums me out about it. I see Ron DeSantis, and I see that he has no redeeming qualities. I've never heard somebody speak glowingly about him in any way, except for his hatred, his anti-trans stuff, his anti-woke stuff, which means that really is, unless I'm missing something, which is totally possible, that really is what people like about him. And he won the governorship by if I remember correctly, a hefty margin. That puts a bad taste in my mouth, man. I don't know. I'll tell you, the next chance, I'm going to have a proper look at how we can get someone other than DeSantis as the Florida governor, because it cannot be acceptable that that guy stays in office for even one more term. All right, tomorrow, the somewhat big day. Trying to be cool, not mock the guy too much. Mature. Here we go. Donald Trump is going to be arraigned. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is, of course, trying her own little version of January 6th. And the mayor of New York City went ahead and told her in a press conference today, calling her out specifically, that this was not going to be like Washington on January 6th. No. The NYPD is going to be there, and they're going to be looking for Terrys who are interested in getting froggy.
This morning, when the police commissioner and I spoke on our morning briefing with the other team, we were clear that tomorrow is a day that's going to draw a great deal of attention to our city. And we know there are many questions around the movement of the city, and we want to make sure that we send a very clear and loud message. As the deputy mayor stated, New York City is always ready. We know that this is a city where our NYPD and other law enforcement entities must be prepared at any given moment for anything to happen in this city. To start, I want to make it clear, the commissioner has stated over and over again, there has been no specific credible threats to our city at this time. And all New Yorkers should go on with their regular activities. That means going to work, going to school. We're going to do our job as we always do. If you usually drive, we're stating take public transportation. It is easy to get around on public transportation because we expect some disruptions and additional traffic. There's a great deal of additional traffic that may come in the city, and there will be street closures near the courts and throughout the city. While there may be some rabble-rousers thinking about coming to our city tomorrow, our message is clear and simple. Control yourselves. New York City is our home, not a playground for your misplaced anger. We are the safest large city in America because we respect the rule of law. And
look at that lady right there. Look at that lady. You want to know what gives me confidence that America ain't done just yet? That steely gaze from the is that, what is that, the head of the police there? I think so. Yeah, that says so much more to the would-be shamans and what have you. Don't with New York City. Don't do it. It ain't Washington on January 6th when Donald Trump was there to say, don't put so many cops in charge. I don't know what that was. I don't do a Trump. Don't put so many cops in charge. No. That look, fucking Jesus. That look tells me everything I need to know. But let's keep letting the mayor say his bit.
New York City. And although we have no specific threats, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is known to spread misinformation and hate speech, she stated she's coming to town. While you're in town, be on your best behavior. As always, we will not allow violence or vandalism of any kind. And if one is caught participating in any act of violence, they will be arrested and held accountable, no matter who you are. And I want to, again, thank the police department, the commissioner, for their response and for the necessary preparation as we deal with this major historical potential event that would take place in the city. This time, I'd like to introduce the police commissioner of the city of New York.
Oh, what was the boss?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Do just bear in mind, all right, let's do her courtesy. There we go. Do just bear in mind, at the height of Donald Trump's power, he could summon 10,000 people during what he said was the most crucial moment, when he invited them, and there was an air of even legitimacy to it. 10,000 people are what showed up. Amongst them, some specialists, the terrorists of the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, and I'm going to be fascinated when when this finally gets to trial, because we will insist it goes to trial. When the coup is taken to trial, I will be very interested to find out how much communication there was between the White House and the terrorist groups that tried to overthrow the country. But that was then. And 1/10 of that mob is either in prison or awaiting their stay in prison. I don't think the NYPD is going to have a problem. But that said, I am glad that they are being crystal clear right now. And I believe this public warning is going to do a lot to thin those crowds, because the people that were somehow jealous of the J6ers are really going to hesitate after seeing this. Get them, folks.
As always, the NYPD is prepared to ensure that everyone is able to have their voices heard peacefully while exercising their First Amendment rights. We do this work in close collaboration with our federal, state, and local partners, because keeping our city safe is absolutely a collective effort. As the mayor stated, there are no credible or specific threats to New York City at this time. New Yorkers may see an increased police presence in parts of the city and should anticipate intermittent road closures over the next 2 days, particularly in Manhattan. To avoid delays, I too urge everyone to use mass transit when possible. As I said, our job is to facilitate and safeguard the rights of people to express themselves and those going about their daily activities. But I will remind everyone that violence and destruction are not part of legitimate, lawful expression, and it will never be tolerated in our city. The people we serve know this, just as they know that the NYPD will be out there today, tomorrow, and every day to make sure that they are safe. Thank you. Mr. Mayor? Sure. Well, we'll take some questions.
Commissioner, has Marjorie Taylor Greene or anyone else for that matter sought to commit, and has anyone been granted?
So
I didn't hear what he said. That one thing that's important, though, she specified that they will be out today, tomorrow, and every day. The today was not an accident, because I promise you, it's fresh in their minds as well. The bombs that were placed ahead of January 6th, we still didn't find that person. That was a warning.
the permitting is actually done through City Hall, but I will say that anyone who protests is expected to express themselves peacefully and orderly.
Arrest or has there been an arrest in the powder incident involving the Brand's office?
That incident is still under investigation at this time.
Commissioner or Mr. Mayor, have you noticed any movements at Port Authority or at the airport? Any influx of people that have been coming in that you've noticed that are coming here for this event? Any estimate on that, or have you not seen it?
We value our relationship with our partners, and we're in constant communication with them. So if they do see an influx of people or something out of the ordinary, they will contact us. At this time, we don't see that happening, but we will have real-time information if that does occur.
Does anyone have specifics? I don't know if this is a question for you, Commissioner, or the Mayor, about where, I know you said intermittent road closures, but can we expect at a certain point how many blocks around the courthouse would be closed? Was the FDR drive or any of the highway when there's movement? And will that information be shared with the public?
So there are going to be rolling road closures, as I'm sure you can understand based on the sensitivity of it. It's going to be moving, but we will make sure we have enough officers to facilitate transport throughout the city. There is one area close to Trump Tower that will have a road that is closed just to facilitate his transport. But beyond that, there'll be rolling road closures intermittently through the city. We're trying to have minimal amount of intrusion into city life.
I do want to say this is likely also not entirely to dissuade pro-Trump protesters, but also literally for the guy's safety. I have nothing kind to say about Donald Trump. But as a matter of personal honor, I refuse to let our government be casual with the safety of a former leader of our government, no matter how despised they are. Just because we have to have standards. And I am glad to hear that they are taking that extra precaution. They're closing down the route he's going to take there because it's very public information where it's not like the people who hate Trump are expected to act crazy. It's just any time there's very public information about where a former official is going to be, take extra precaution, and this is good. Particularly given that people will have the time as well as the place.
I wanted to ask, what additional measures is the NYPD taking, not only to protect DA Bragg, but also other members of his office?
Great question.
We take any threats or concerns of our elected officials and anyone in the city very seriously. So we have provided some assistance in that regard, and we are investigating any threats that may be made to the DA or any of his staff.
Will the Times Square gun-free zone be moved in and around courthouses?
As you know, a number of laws were passed when we went into having sensitive zones and restricted zones. It's actually an e-felony to carry in some of those zones, even if you have a license. Some of those zones include courthouses, federal buildings, and First Amendment activities. So we're not going to move those. I think responsible gun ownership requires that you know what the laws are, where you are protesting, and we expect everyone to adhere to ours.
So it is possible. Good.
Well, going back to police presence, how many officers do you expect to be on the streets? And also, the Secret Service, I mean, how have they come in and basically told you what to do? Or, I mean, how much control are they having over security?
I'm loving these questions. If you didn't hear, how much did the Secret Service, they're asking, how much did they dictate what's going to happen tomorrow?
We work with the Secret Service all the time. These are our partners. I won't go into how many numbers of police officers will be on the street, but we will have enough to facilitate mobile units if we need to respond to anything. But this is a collaborative effort with our partners in the Secret Service.
Commissioner, NYPD personnel days off, suspended or canceled for the interim.
So you're listening there to Keyshawn Sewell, the New York City Police Department Commissioner, along with the New York Mayor Eric Adams, giving a security briefing about the arrangements ahead of tomorrow's historic day here in the United States and in New York, where Donald Trump will be arraigned and after his indictment on criminal charges. We heard some headlines out of this. They said they're sending a clear and loud message. They're not going to tolerate any sort of violence, and there's no specific or credible threat that there will be any sort of violence tomorrow. And they also a warning of sorts to Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is the conservative congresswoman who urging her to be on her best behavior while leading a protest tomorrow in New York City. Let's go right to CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst, John Miller, as well as the CNN senior law enforcement analyst, Chief Ramsey.
This is a question for the comments. Does that mean anything to you at all when they're like, it's a senior law enforcement correspondent or a chief law enforcement correspondent? I theoretically come from this business, although not this level. So I have no idea what that means. What is the difference between a senior correspondent and just a law enforcement correspondent? Is that what you give to somebody instead of a raise as a title? I don't know.
John, the headline, no specific credible threat to the city. What's your reaction?
That's what we were expecting to hear, in that they've been looking at everything from social media posts to bomb threats that have been called in the week before last, and the entire threat picture. And none of it rises to anything where they can say, this is something where we think there's something behind it where it's actually going to occur. That's the good news. The important part from an intelligence standpoint is you have to understand that you're not going to know of every credible threat or what lurks in the shadows. So the bifurcated posture there is they're watching the threat traffic, but they're also prepared for the unknown. And I think that's what the police commissioner was talking about, which is they're not only following the threats, but they're investigating even threats that are posted in social media to say, who's on the other end of that threat? Do they need to be interviewed? Were they serious about the threat? Do they have the capability to carry it out? And so far, they haven't seen anything that crosses the line. But again, they're prepared.
And they're prepared. And Chief, too, the mayor mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene, called on her and others to, quote, be on your best behavior. What do you take away from that stark warning?
Well, what I take away is it doesn't matter who you are. If you break the law, if you engage in any act of violence, you will suffer the consequences, period. And we learned from January 6th, obviously, that these things can turn bad. But having said that, it sounds like the NYPD is prepared. I have no doubt that they are in a position to be able to deal with whatever may come up, both in terms of just the regular control of what takes place on the various sites.
Their producer, whose job it is to switch the camera feeds, got a talking to after this one.
But also having mobile units that can move from point A to point B very rapidly. You know, the mayor and the commissioner both mentioned something that I think people lose sight of oftentimes because we get so focused on the security itself. But for the average New Yorker, they're not interested in what's going on. They just want to get from point A to point B. They want to get to the bank. They want to get to the grocery store. So you have to balance things and keep people informed when you have street closures and things of that nature, so that they can move freely or as freely as they can around the city. And that's a balancing act in and of itself. You try to get people to take public transportation, but that's not always, you know, what people choose to do. So it's a balancing act. So they've got a lot of moving parts. They're dealing with what's going on in terms.
It's 16 seconds.
Of
I'm gonna let the man
the
finish.
ex-president, him surrendering to various sites that need to be dealt with. But there's also day-to-day business that goes on in the city. All your resources cannot be in one place. They're going to be handling everything that takes place in New York on that day.
Well, what can you do about this? You don't have to do anything about this, except be reminded that the conspiracy to take over our country was a big one. Yeah, this is Donald Trump's indictment regarding a state crime that he may have done. Really looks like he did, on account of his lawyer went to prison for this very crime. And currently does a podcast largely focused on how his former boss was part of that crime, but nonetheless, innocent till proven guilty. Let's not forget, January 6th happened. All of this security is because January 6th happened. Not all of it, most of it. A lot of the security is indeed there for Trump's own protection. But that specific call out to Marjorie Taylor Greene, that's because she's a MAGA psycho. We have more than 1,000 people in prison on charges relating to an insurrection. And a local lawman, a district attorney, beat the Attorney General of the United States to the punch when it came to indicting Trump. Really soak that in. He had district attorney resources, not attorney general resources. He had a district attorney's staff, not the entire staff of the Department of Justice. He beat Merrick Garland. Remember, Merrick Garland had a whole lot of crimes. He could have charged before now. And maybe we'll find out that he had a really good reason for letting Donald Trump go for years without any punishment. Maybe we'll find that out. I doubt it. And regardless, I certainly wouldn't trust him to go after every fake elector in the 7 states that had fake elector plots. Right now, 2 of those states, just 2 of those states, have state-level investigations into election interference. If you are in one of the 5 outstanding states, in this case, it's not good to be outstanding. You are in one of those states. Linked in the description, by the way. Listed in the description. But what the hell, I'll say them right now. Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Nevada. Now I got to look at the description. If you are in one of those states, for God's sake, write your attorney general. They are also linked in the description. Which one? Oh, New Mexico. Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin. If you are in one of those states, write your attorney general. The link is in the description. Tell them you want a state-level investigation into the fake elector plot. If you rely on Merrick Garland, like they currently are doing, all of them, if you rely on Merrick Garland, I don't believe you're going to get justice. Certainly not when it comes to every one of the fake electors who pretended to be real electors. In other words, they tried to nullify the votes of the people from that state. If you're in one of those states, start the state investigation. We are responsible for where we live. If you live in Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin, and you've never written your attorney general, you don't have to feel bad. Maybe this is the first time you're hearing about it. But if the sun rises tomorrow and you haven't written your attorney general saying that you demand justice be done, you demand a state-level investigation, then you do bear some of the responsibility. It is our responsibility to deal with the areas wherein we live so that collectively we have a better country. Those 5 Democrat attorney generals are all either too lazy or too cowardly or entirely too trusting of Merrick Garland. I don't really care which it is. We need state-level investigations going. Give it some thought, folks. Patrick Thibodeau says, comments I've heard on DeSantis are that he is not bright, no personality, not creative, original, not flattering. Christ. Yeah. I haven't heard good things about the man either, but good Lord. Let's hope his political career is short. I really do hope the fever breaks in the U.S., and I suspect as Trump is in court, you're going to have a sea change. The reason being so much of the fanaticism around MAGA, at least from what I can see, just comes off the snowballing ridiculousness of people who are afraid to admit how wrong they were. I mean, it's becoming increasingly apparent. And one thing we often don't think about, I mean, when we imagine the other side, the opposition, we tend not to humanize them. And I'm not saying be sympathetic, because this is undefensible behavior. But don't forget they're humans either. You ever dated somebody who was just a drag? They were just rude to people, maybe, and you didn't know that when you started dating them? But time went on, it became harder and harder to apologize for them. You ever dated somebody like that? You ever had a friend like that? Always starts business with people for no dang reason. You got to apologize. They always get way too drunk at a party. You got to apologize, drag them out. It's tiring, is my point. It's exhausting. MAGA folks, if you're willing to humanize them, you might be able to picture a present, perhaps, but certainly a near future, where they're sick of having to follow every lurid detail of this thing because their friends and family keep saying, well, what about this? Well, what about this? Well, what about this? So on and so on and so forth, until finally, one by one by one, they're going to say, I don't like the guy that much to begin with. It was the taxes I liked. That's how it happened. Yes, there's going to be people that have a come to Jesus moment, but I think we're going to have a lot more people that just get sick of having to defend this guy and just get sick of having their friends and family tell them, hey, remember how you said Trump definitely didn't do that thing? Here he is in court admitting to doing that thing. Here's the transcript because he couldn't lie under oath. Here's the lawyer proving that conspiracy theory you believe is nonsense. They're going to get sick of it. As tired as we get fighting this stuff, it's possible to forget that they have a finite amount of energy as well. And there's less of them. And by the way, they're wrong. Being wrong is a special kind of weakness. When you're fundamentally wrong, all the adapter kits you slap on that mentality, it's just not going to be as good as being right. Stay strong. Stay energetic. Contact your state's attorney general if you live in one of those 5 states. If you've already contacted them, contact them again. Remember, your state's attorney general is also a human being, which means they also have a finite amount of energy. Make it more tiring for them to say no to you than to just open the damn case and get it over with. Wear them down. I'll let you in on a little secret before we end the show today. I spent all morning trying to make a promo video for this channel. It was an absolute disaster. Absolute disaster. In the VOD for this, which I'm going to put up in a little bit, in the VOD, if we get what's a very, I don't want to release this, so it's a very high number of, let's say, if we get 10 comments specifically asking to see this disastrous promo that does not look good, I will release it. I'll release it unlisted as a link only, and I will send it as a reply to all of those comments. And for those of you that are in the lobbyist community, I will put it there as well. It was almost good, but it involves your old pal Jake dancing in front of the void, and the lighting wasn't flattering. Anyway, let's get this thing uploaded so we can get this. That was John. You're right. I'm sorry. Apologies, Patrick. You and John McDonough both have green names with the wicked symbol, and Franny P. So I do tend to get confused easily. But let's get this bad boy put up, folks. I had a fun time talking with y'all today. Remember, tomorrow's 2 for Tuesday. We're going to do 2 of these streams, and Patrick, I'll tell you, we're going to do a 10 a.m. stream and an 8 p.m. stream. And per your suggestion, I will include 9 p.m. when I do a poll in the community tab for when the official showtime should be. Big fan of encouraging voting. That's one way we do it. But for tomorrow, 10 a.m. and 8 p.m., those are the stream times. I will see you there. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake.